I believe we have Rocky McElhaney. He's with the Tennessee Association for Justice. You're recognized, and if you don't mind, state your name, who you're with.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is that on? Mr. Chairman, I'm Rocky McElhaney. I'm a small business owner in Tennessee, and I'm here today to oppose HB 194.
And could you state who you're with?
I'm with the Tennessee Association for Justice.
Great. That's just for the record. Thank
you, sir. As I said, beyond being with that association, I'm a small business owner in Tennessee. Since 2008, I've created 9 jobs in the state, and I'm proud of that. My father was injured in a work accident 25 years ago, and I've been affiliated with this system and seen the way insurance companies handle these claims my entire working life. I'm proud of my blue-collar roots. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm here to speak for injured people in Tennessee. I'd like to start, if I can, with the consultants hired by the governor's staff to look at this bill. Mr. Greg Crome is the main guy, and in a 2011 interview with Risk and Insurance magazine, he said the greatest indictment about workers' compensation laws is that people don't get enough. The laws are too stingy for wage replacement for permanent injury. The bill before you today does more to paralyze working families in Tennessee than any other single piece of legislation that has ever come before this committee. In 1919, Tennessee set forth the great compromise between employers and employees, by which the employee was stripped of his ability to hold workers, workplace employers liable and responsible for unsafe workplaces. The great compromise provided that employees would receive limited benefits for catastrophic injuries and other injuries in exchange for employers not being sued in tort for the full value of the harms and losses. It's that great compromise which stands before us in Tennessee today, which is being stripped away by this legislation. When the administration, Ms. Hudgens, came before this committee to talk about this bill and present it, she had this slide as number 2. This was the number 2 slide you saw from the administration. And I want to talk about this slide and go through what the true facts are behind this slide. I'm sort of reminded at this point of the story of the Pied Piper. And I'm afraid that because you've only heard from them at this point, you've been led into a situation where you think this is a good bill. As the sponsor just said, the bill is put before you on the auspices that it's fair to employees. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not fair to employees, and I'll illustrate that in a minute. I want to talk about the point of higher costs. Higher costs in our state is a red herring to get you to oversee what this is doing to the worker. Since the 2004 reforms, benefits paid to injured workers in Tennessee have already decreased 41%. Further, a study from NASI, the National Academy of Social Insurance, published in 2012, studied reporting data from 2006 to 2010. What it did is evened out the wages by looking at benefits paid to injured workers for every $100 of covered wages. And in that scenario, when you equalize wages across our region, Tennessee had the best performance in those periods. While other states in the blue were paying workers more money for every $100 of covered wages, Tennessee was paying them less. Yet we stand before you crying that there's a problem with the workers being paid. It's untrue. The NCCI, the National Council of Compensation Insurance, is clear that in Tennessee, indemnity costs continue to decline. And the average indemnity cost in Tennessee is lower than our other states. We're paying workers less on average than our competing states. This slide, amazingly, was left out of the presentation to you in your council. In our system, the cost drivers, Representative Casada, is not what the worker receives. The cost drivers are what the system doctors receive. In our system, 67 cents out of every dollar is paid to the doctors in the system. But the bill doesn't address that. The bill only addresses what the workers get. If you look at the slide from NCCI, we're lower than the region and the countrywide for what the worker gets. We're already competitive in that region. In fact, 77% of all claims for workers' compensation filed in this state result only in the doctors receiving any money. Stated another way, in 77% of all claims, the employee receives nothing in terms of compensation. This is important evidence that the system is not broken when it comes to the workers. Mr. Greg Crome, the consultant, said in the same interview that the largest challenge is to get the medical costs under control. This bill does not do that. We'll go back to slide 2 from Ms. Hudgens. Let's talk about a detriment to bringing jobs to Tennessee. That was another thing she said to you, that our system was a detriment to bringing jobs to Tennessee. I want you to know that on February 28 of this year, Ms. Hudgens testified in front of the Work Comp Advisory Council, and she was asked the question, is there any data or study that you can cite to this council which supports the idea that reducing workers' compensation costs will bring jobs to Tennessee? Her answer was, there's no data, there's no survey, there's no study. It's only based on anecdotal information from employers. Well, I could stand here for 3 days and give you anecdotal information from employees that this system does not need to be changed to drive a stake through the heart of the working man. Anecdotal information should not be enough for this committee to freight train a bill through. Let's go back to her example. Concerns about the court system. We have concerns about the court system. Well, you got to know that in trials and settlement data available through the Tennessee Department of Labor and the AOC, less than 1% of all cases go to trial. How can we have a huge problem with predictability if less than 1% of cases go to trial? It's not an accurate assessment of the system that's being put before you. Contrasted to that, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that 99% of all unfiled claims are settled at the administrative region process we have now. Less than 1% go to trial, 99% are approved through the Tennessee Department of Labor if they're unfiled. This data is supportive that the worker does not need to be hurt through this bill. I want to talk about her issues about the claims taking too long. And this is important, I think, for you to understand this. This was Ms. Hudgens' slide number 4, length of time in court. Ms. Hudgens picked out from the Department of Labor's database 10 cases to bring you to illustrate that cases take too long, and these are the number of days they were in court. Here are the real data from the Administrative Office of Courts. Currently, there's 166 days. In 2008, it was 309. Now look at her data from 2008. 1,487 days and 1,147 days. That's what she brought to you as illustrations of a problem we have. The data from AOC is that in 2008, it took 309 days on average. And it's went down every year since then to almost a 50% reduction in the last 5 years. There's no problem with the length of time in this state, despite the allegations to the contrary.